Good morning. Welcome to Speaking of Animals. My name is Jeffrey Ritter. I'm with the Flagler Humane Society. And at Flagler Humane Society, we're pretty active on social media. We have one of the biggest Facebook followings in Flagler County. We just passed over 5,000 followers. And I like to stay on Twitter for us as well. We're up over 270 followers right now. And in doing that, you got to stay active, and that's how I found out about our today's guest. He's got a really interesting Twitter handle. It's Dog Guy Josh, right?
Correct.
Dog Guy Josh, and so his name is Josh, and he is a certified dog trainer out in California. And he posts some really interesting stuff, and it's a lot of really good informative information. And I knew it's something that people listening would want to know more about, because he's got, like I said, very informative stuff, and he's got a really, really great approach on how to train your dog, how to handle them, and it's all really good stuff. So that's why we wanted to welcome him to the show today. I just want to read a little bit about off your website, Josh, just to let people know a little bit more about you and your approach to things. And then we'll get into some more specifics about dogs. So he has, everything I work on is intended to solve a real problem for people, including affordable access to humane educational dog training, information and resources whenever possible. Someday I envision people having to go to the equivalent of online traffic school for dogs when, for example, their dog is picked up by animal control for being at large. Better yet, why can't government agencies and nonprofit organizations provide better access to education? That's not a rhetorical question. It is really fair to you, me, or it is really fair to you, me, or society that anyone can have a dog but not acquire the necessary skills to train and prevent or manage problematic behavior. So I think you take a real good positive approach to training dogs, and you really push education. So welcome everybody to the show, Dog Guy Josh.
Well, thanks, Jeffrey. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
Yeah, I wasn't always a great pet owner myself.
Yep.
In fact, that's kind of how I got into dog training. And I got this little pit bull, and I started walking him down the street one day, a little puppy, and people were just walking the other way. And I was sort of fresh out of the military at the time, and I didn't really know that the pit bull stigma existed. And so it really opened my eyes to the breed and what's involved as far as training goes. And I sort of realized I was a natural animal trainer, and through that I wanted to help others do the same. So I started off on my own for a couple of years in dog training, and I started experiencing some difficulties, getting clients and running classes and a variety of other things that trainers face in the industry. And basically, I went back to college and I started doing market research, and one of the things I realized is that dog training is a luxury service, and is upwards of 92% of people can't afford it. So, most of the people are doing the work themselves. And unfortunately, because of that, we have a lot of societal problems. Dogs return to shelters, the ever-increasing number of dog bites every year, backyard breeding, puppy mills, and things like that.
And so you said you went back to school. You're part of a professional association of dog trainers. You got certified and everything?
Yes, I'm part of the Association of Professional Dog Trainers. I've been a professional member for 8 years, and I love the organization and fully support their mission and purpose. They're sort of the head parent body for professional dog trainers in the U.S. Unfortunately, there's not that many of us. As I mentioned, dog training is a luxury service. It's a really hard business to get into. Most of us get into it because we love dogs, but we don't know anything about business. So I went back to business school, and that's where I really got down to the nitty-gritty as far as the statistics goes and the challenges that professionals face in the industry and that pet owners face. Yeah,
exactly. And it's a tough thing because even just learning some basic things can help. I work in a shelter and I see animals return for things that could be easily fixed, and it happens, but it's still upsetting. And just like you said, it is kind of, training is kind of a luxury thing. And we have usually about 70 dogs at any time. 70 to 80. We have a lot more cats than that, but it's unfortunate that we don't always have time to spend with them to give them the training that they need. But, so if somebody is, for example, going to adopt an animal from a shelter, sometimes they have that, and you talk about pit bull stigma, and then sometimes dogs in shelters are often seen as like used goods. So if a person's going out to adopt a new animal, especially from a shelter, what are some like first time recommendations you can give them?
Well, I think any dog, because they're in the shelter environment, sometimes it can be difficult to gauge the amount of exercise requirements and things like that they may need. So I encourage people to do a lot of research as far as breeds go and what people do with their breeds. If they're a working dog, if they're a herding dog, if they're a hunting dog, and then think about what that might involve in terms of their lifestyle. If they get a retriever type dog, that dog probably likes having tasks and games to play every day and things to do for their owner, whereas a Shih Tzu or a small companion dog may be better suited for an apartment and a place where a person doesn't have a very active lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. And then we were talking, you mentioned that the stigma of pit bulls, and so that was a problem for you, and that was something you wanted to look into further and do something about. So was it just from your personal experience with your dog, or how'd that happen for you?
Well, I see and I hear about it not only from my clients but friends and all over social media and other places. And I think the difficult part about dog attacks is obviously just mainstream media and some of the, of course we hear about those vicious stories, but the frequency of occurrence is really quite small, especially compared to some of that of other breeds. Some people will probably be surprised to know that Labs and German Shepherds, are capable of, or recorded as having more dog bites per year than other breeds. And I think that's because those types of breeds are in the home with children. And so what that tells me is it's, it's not a breed thing, it's an education problem. And it really, traditionally information has been passed down generation to generation, and, there really isn't one central authority that's able to provide, the average pet owner with, the quality of information when it comes to educational training.
Yeah, it's upsetting too when you see all this stuff about pit bulls, and then I agree with you. I think it is kind of an educational thing, and I think the media makes it a lot worse than what it is. But and with that said, I want to ask you, like, what would you rather train a pit bull or who's your do you worry about the little guys sometimes? Because I know those are the ones that give us problems at the shelter.
Yeah, I love all dogs. I think that there's definitely a challenge in training any type of dog. If you have a small dog, they don't eat much, and so, you end up using a portion of their normal meals or substituting something for it instead. When you work with dogs like pit bulls, you have a high prey drive, which a lot of people think you're not supposed to play games like tug of war with those types of animals, but it actually helps channel that drive even more. Mm-hmm. And so that way it, prevents them from potentially going after a small animal or critter, when they're off leash. So like as far as pit bulls go, I highly encourage things like fetch and tug of war and daily leashed walks. And, no matter what kind of breed you have, I think it's important to just be sensitive to what the dog itself needs, and often what we want conflicts with dogs' normal behavior. Mm-hmm. And so, training really helps find that compromise between, what's best for them and what's best for us. It helps keep them safe and helps keep us safe.
That is kind of a big conflict that you have, probably, I bet, in your experience as well, that there's a big conflict between what we expect and what's actually going to happen in reality.
Right.
Yeah. And then I know you said there's something on your website that says what you can't expect from me, but then there's a lot of other things. What I can't do. Dog trainers aren't magicians. I thought that was great.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't really mean to bag on Cesar Millan necessarily, but I think, having certain portrayals of how animal training is performed, through television shows and things, really misleads the general public as far as the methods and options that are available to people. And it even says on TV shows, always consult a professional. You should never try this stuff at home. And I think it's important for us to remember that those types of things are entertainment, not something to worship as a religion, so to speak.
It is pretty convenient when they solve all the problems in a half hour, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you don't see a lot that goes on behind the cameras we don't see.
Yes, exactly. All right, so we are going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Speaking of Animals. Today we are talking to, I call him Dog Guy Josh. You can see him on Twitter at Dog Guy Josh. He is a dog trainer out in Chico, California. It's got a really interesting approach on dog training and the best methods, best way to do things, and also stresses education, humane education. You had back in April, you had your new ebook come out about clicker training for dogs, and I know that's something that you're real big on, is training with the clicker. So tell us a little bit about what's in that book.
Yeah, so I didn't always use clicker, but once it was introduced to me, I realized it's sort of the quickest, fastest, and most effective way to train any animal. And but I think there's a lot of confusion sometimes about how it's used, and the basic idea for the ebook was to help support my new product that's coming out, Clicker Ring, which is a user-friendly clicker training tool. It allows pet owners to continue to use a clicker when holding a leash, teaching loose leash walking, and working with reactive dogs. So the ebook was sort of my first launch at a support product for that. Mm-hmm. And basically, the free ebook takes you through the process of sort of what clicker training is about, answers any frequently asked questions, common misconceptions about clicker training, and it's really designed. It's really designed for the average pet owner to be able to pick up and start clicker training on their own, and that's part of my effort to reduce the educational barrier to humane education, is by making these types of resources available. And the basic idea is that when you first introduce a behavior, you like sit. You don't even say the word. In fact, you just click them for their butt hitting the ground, and you do that repeatedly, only focusing on one behavior at a time during your session. And when that's followed through with a treat, the click essentially acts as a marker. It's like saying good, or good boy, good dog, only that it's more precise and easy for them to detect. Whereas sometimes, as humans, we forget to use our voice or, condition ourselves to say good. And so the clicker helps make for very, discreet, easily recognizable marker during training.
Okay, so it lets them know that they still are doing a good job, but not necessarily having to say it verbally.
Yeah, it's used to mark desired behaviors, and the reasons I love clicker training are that you can do things with it that you can't do with food and voice alone sometimes. And even the best professionals, I would say, a clicker will weigh out in trying to train certain activities. But a clicker is also used for what's called shaping and targeting. And shaping is clicking for successive approximations of the behavior. So if you wanted to teach something like spin that doesn't occur naturally, first you can click a dog for a head turn, and then maybe for a quarter body turn, and a half turn, until eventually you've gotten the full behavior. Whereas if you were to take a treat and lure the dog in a circle multiple times, it would be really hard to then fade out the treat and get that behavior on a cue. Yeah. And so clicker training greatly accelerates that process as far as shaping goes, and it also allows people to teach things like service dog tasks, closing doors, virtually any behavior you could teach with a clicker. That's why I really love it. Nice. And then the other one is targeting, which is, again, closing a door, something like that.
Nice. All right. You've got a really great blog on your website, and you've got a lot of great information on there. And one of the posts that you did was about foods that human foods that dogs can eat, and some for them to avoid. And there are some ones that are good for them, and we're told never to do people food, but tell us some that are good and what to avoid.
Yeah, there's a lot of wonderful foods out there that we can actually feed dogs, and I think there's been a stigma that we're not supposed to feed dogs human food because it causes bagging and, or perhaps has, bones in it or something, from the dinner table that could harm them. And then a lot of the time people don't know what they're not supposed to feed. So a lot of the obvious ones you might hear about are chocolate, onions, grapes, raisins, those types of things. But there are a lot of foods that you can feed dogs, like cheese, yogurt. Sometimes I'll use popcorn during training.
Yeah.
And the reason I like to use a variety of different foods is it keeps the training interesting. It helps motivate your dog sometimes when they're not motivated. And it really gives, your dog a motivation or an incentive to stay involved in the training. And sometimes we don't always have treats available. Like if we can't run down to the dog store, sometimes you can just look in your fridge and see what you can do with your dog for a 5-minute session to entertain them rather than, continuing to let them attention seek or, get involved in problematic behavior.
Yep. And real quick, you have a really interesting post about why your dog might listen to you at home but not in public. So what causes that?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think a lot of people think that, after they take a basic obedience class or something, their dog is trained, and that's not necessarily the case. I'm not a big fan of obedience classes in the first place because they generally tend to be distracting environments, and dogs learn best in the home where there's least possible distraction.
Okay.
If you can put the other dogs away, tell your family members to go away, and just utilize a nice, quiet space, you're going to achieve a lot more. And then once you've established a behavior reliably on cue 9 times out of 10 at home, then you want to progress to like a medium distraction place, like out in the front yard, the backyard, maybe down the street, places like that. And then once you could do something 9 times out of 10 there, now you're ready to take your cue to the park and actually practice at those places. Keeping in mind that every time you increase the level of distraction, your dog's performance is going to go down. So what often happens is, we take a class, our dog's sitting 9 times out of 10, maybe in a low to medium distraction place, but the second we go to a new environment, their performance decreases. And that's because dogs are very poor at generalizing behavior, which means, what they do with one, they're very people-specific and location-specific learners. What they do well with one person or one place, they might not do well in another. So it's our job as pet parents to actually give them an opportunity to get that reliability up in those new environments where we actually want them to respond to us.
I'm glad you said that because you know what, that's something I never even, it makes a lot of sense, but I never even realized how it's people specific and location specific. And that's, makes a lot of sense, but I guess it's something you don't really think about too often, right?
Yeah, often what happens is, one person in the home does the training, and then they're not listening to the other family members.
Yeah.
It becomes that person's dog when, really it should be everyone's responsibility to participate and take part and be able to provide leadership, in a variety of situations.
Nice. All right, so we are going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Speaking of Animals. My guest today has been Josh Pitts. He is a dog trainer out in California. He's got a really great website with a lot of great information. Let us know what that is, Josh, and where we can learn more about you.
My website is dogguyjosh.com, and on there you can also find my social links if you want to connect with me in other ways. I just recently started blogging, although I've been a trainer for 8 years, and over the next few months, I plan to take on a lot of my reader feedback and create some more excellent content for people. So, I appreciate you checking out the website and sharing with your friends.
And you've got a big email list too. And how often you send out the emails?
Right now, I'm sending emails out about once a week. Although I do tend to start perhaps daily blogging a little more in the near future. And sometimes people unsubscribe if they don't like the stuff, but I encourage people to stay subscribed because, you don't have to read it, but once in a while you might get an email that's just right up your alley and, be happy that you stay subscribed.
Yeah, there's a lot of good information, and I encourage people to check out your blog and your website because you have your approach to things, I think, is a lot better than your very positive reinforcement and that kind of thing. So I really encourage people to check you out. And at Flagler Humane Society, we are gearing up for our Fast and Furious Run and Walk. It is August 29th at Princess Place Reserve. You can get signed up at FlaglerHumaneSociety.org/fast. And we got the 4-mile run at 8 o'clock. It's a timed run. And then we have our 2-mile kind of fun walk with your dog. That's at 10:30. So it is a lot of fun. We have a festival that follows. So please go and get signed up and come on down and see us. Thanks so much for being with us today, Josh. And I want to thank everybody for listening to Speaking of Animals.
Speaking of Animals, airs Saturday mornings at 8 on 1550 AM, 106.3 FM, and worldwide at WNZF.com, live or by podcast. Do you have a story you'd like to share with us about a special pet or a question for our medical or behavioral experts? Contact us at radio@FlaglerHumaneSociety.org. And don't forget to view all the wonderful animals waiting for you to give them a forever home at FlaglerHumaneSociety.org.